see that. Oh no, you're gonna be seeing. No, you won't able to see that because you're gonna be screening. I found a link. Give me 1 sec.
Is that connected to the internet?
Connected to the.
D-Link?
Yeah.
No. Is it? Now touch Wi-Fi and D-Link. Say connecting.
Connected.
Okay. So now the link should appear. It's working.
Just do a test first.
Hare Krishna, can you hear? Are we online? Can you hear? On the WhatsApp group, can you type if you can hear? Jai.
Just speak.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradari Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu ki jai. I think my neck beads are rubbing against this thing. That's why you're hearing the noise. I hope that noise has disappeared. So, happy Ekadashi, everybody. Let's repeat the invocation responsively. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So welcome to Nectar of Devotion, chapter number 30. And let's pay our obeisances to the 6 Goswamis, including Srila Rupa Goswami. Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipuno Sadharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanyakaro Radha Krishna Padara Vinda Bhajana Nandena Mataliko Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyugo Shri Jiva Gopala Go. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, namely Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all of the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they are honored all over the 3 worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. Jai Shri Sat Goswami Astakam Ki Jai. So chapter 30 is a continuation of the previous chapter that we did last week, chapter 29. This chapter is entitled, as you can see, Further Features of Ecstatic Love for Krishna. So in this line of Vyabhichari Bhav, there were 33 different elements that were being described or were listed. And this chapter, last week, or in the last chapter, we did a good few, and now we are continuing with all of those qualities or emotions that become stimulated and increase the rasa between Krishna and the devotees. So, believe it or not, in these qualities, although they sound very materialistic due to our association and our cognizance of matter in the forefront of our consciousness, these may sound like material qualities. However, these are there is simply no degree of Maya in any one of these instances that are described here. So, in confusion, Srila Prabhupada writes in the Nectar of Devotion regarding the feeling of confusion. You must bear in mind that these qualities, they stimulate the rasa between Krishna and the devotee to a higher degree. So they are sort of enhancements to the real rasa between Krishna and the devotee on this very high level of bhav. So in confusion, Srila Prabhupada describes in the Nectar of Devotion, similarly, there's a statement describing confusion caused by fearfulness. So confusion can be brought about by fear, but it can also be brought about by separation, as we'll discuss just now. So here we're dealing with fearfulness. Prabhupada's writing about confusion that stems from fear. These symptoms were exhibited by Arjun when he saw Krishna's universal form on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. His confusion was so strong that his bow and arrows fell from his hand and he could not perceive anything clearly. So Arjuna, you would recall when we studied the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna addressed Arjun as the best of the Aryans. So Arjun is on a very, very intimate level of devotion of Krishna Bhakti. And when he saw the universal form, as you can see partially on the slide here, that this universal form actually was so frightening. The Kauravas were entering into the one of the mouths on the universal form. There were snakes coming out, different things were happening. And this picture, if you look at the complete picture, is such a busy picture. In my childhood, this picture kept me occupied for days and days to behold what's happening with each and every head of the universal form. So you can well imagine Arjun seated on the chariot. Behold, his friend Krishna, Govinda, was the young youth, had this youthful look of a 16-year-old boy. And they engage in so many friendly exchanges. And all of a sudden, when he sees the same Krishna showing another form that's so overwhelming, Arjuna's confusion became very prominent, that his hands began to shake and his Gandiva bow was slipping from his hand. So that's from the fear of this overwhelming form. So then I said earlier on, the Prabhupada explains that confusion also comes from separation. And this is exhibited in with Srimati Radharani. She feels so afflicted by separation from Krishna that when she was once at the bank of the Yamuna with some of her friends, Radharani saw a cottage. Vrinda Devi actually is in charge, together with Punamasi, of making arrangements to stimulate or to facilitate the meetings between Radha and Krishna. So sometimes they create little cottages or groves where Radha and Krishna would meet. And different things are very, very prominent. Like to match the color of their cloth, the flowers would bloom in that particular color to conceal their presence there. So many rasas can take place in an undisturbed fashion, thus bringing great pleasure to the divine couple. So when Srimati Radharani, being in separation from Krishna, saw one such cottage on the banks of the Yamuna, she started to remember the incidents that she and Krishna engaged in that particular cottage, and she immediately became overcome with dizziness. This dizziness was very prominent and visible, and this is noted by Srila Rupa Goswami as dizziness, as an instance of confusion caused by separation. So that's this dizziness. So that's about confusion. Then, believe it or not, the next quality is death. Prabhupada writes, in this connection, there's a statement about a person who died at Mathura. These persons had a slight breathing acceleration. Their eyes were wide open, the colors of their bodies were changed, and they began to utter the holy names of Krishna. In this condition, they gave up their material bodies. These symptoms are prior manifestations of death. So in Mathura, the land of Krishna's birth, when devotees die there, then remembrance of Krishna is very prominent or very much in the forefront of their consciousness. So, in Vrindavan, we all know that Kamsa, he was sending various demons to attack Krishna and to kill Krishna. And one such demon was this bird demon that you see in this picture, Bakasura. So Bakasura, he came in the form of a heron bird, and he opened his mouth. It was a gigantic, monstrous heron. So he opened his mouth in order to swallow Krishna and all the cowherd boys. Can you imagine? Krishna, he walks around with an entire entourage of cowherd boys. And this mouth was so huge that Krishna and the cowherd boys could fit in comfortably. So a very monstrous demon. When Krishna was entering this demon's mouth, Balaram and the cowherd boys, because Krishna went first, and when Balaram and the cowherd boys, when they saw this, they almost fainted and appeared as though they died, lifeless. Even out of their love for Krishna, can you imagine the object of their love and the cause of all of their pleasure for this existence entering into the mouth of such a huge demon? This brought in so much of fear, and Balaram and the cowherd boys, they appeared as if they were dead, as if there was no life. So Prabhupada writes that even if the devotees are illusioned by some ghastly scene or by any sort of accidental occurrence, they never forget Krishna. Even in the greatest danger, they can remember Krishna. This is a benefit of Krishna consciousness even at the time of death. When all the functions of the body become dislocated, the devotee can still remember Krishna in his innermost consciousness, and this saves him from falling down into the material existence. So I think it was Srila Ramanuj Acharya who asked Krishna that if at the time of death he forgets Krishna, what would happen? And Krishna's answer was that even if you forget me, I will force myself into your mind. So that's exactly what happens. So even though the devotees appear to be so overwhelmed by Krishna's pastime that they supposedly are like dead, then there's still remembrance of Krishna. They will still call out to Krishna. This is in the instant of the forest fire. We see this in the instance of the Aghasura demon, and so many cases where the devotees were so overwhelmed and they were fainting, but they with the last breath they will call out Krishna, Krishna. So this is the instance of death. Then the next one is laziness. Is there something as room for laziness in devotional service? Does laziness increase any type of rasa or relationship with Krishna? Prabhupada writes, when, because of self-satisfaction or dislike of excessive labor, a person does not perform his duty in spite of having the energy, he is called lazy. This laziness is also manifested in the ecstatic love for Krishna. For example, when some brahmanas were requested by Nanda Maharaj to circumambulate Govardhan Hill, they told him that they are more interested in offering benedictions than in circumambulating Govardhan Hill. This is an instance of laziness caused by self-satisfaction. So they were more interested in receiving the benedictions than doing the arduous task of circumambulating Govardhan Hill. Thereby they declined Nanda Maharaj's request. So how does this actually stimulate rasa in Krishna, laziness? In the Sakya Ras, when Krishna's associating with the cowherd boys, there's an instance where Krishna, together with the cowherd boys, they engage in something called a mock battle. So they play fight, and it appears quite realistic because you get some punches thrown at you, you get a little hurt, etc.
It is realistic. They're
It
not pretending.
So Krishna calls it mock fight, right? And Subal, in one such instance, he was displaying so many symptoms of fatigue. So Krishna immediately, he told his friends, Subal is feeling too fatigued from mock fighting with me. So please do not disturb him any more by inviting him to fight. So this is an instant of laziness caused by dislike of excessive labor. So Subal, being in an intimate connection with Krishna, was feeling lazy to fight. And that stimulated the rasa between him and Krishna, because then Krishna got the chance to sort of sarcastically say, oh, he's so tired. Anyway, we won't give him part of our game, so to speak. And then, Subal would then come and beg Krishna, no, I want to be part of the game. He beg all the cowherd boys. So it increases the rasa between the cowherd boys and Krishna. That is the instance of how laziness is exhibited in this high level of bhava. The next symptom is inertness. Srila Prabhupada writes in the 10th canto, 21st chapter, verse 13 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's an appreciation by the gopis of inertia of the cows in Vrindavan. The gopis saw that the cows were hearing the sweet songs vibrated by Krishna's flute, and they were appearing to be drinking the nectar of these transcendental sounds. The calves were stunned. They forgot to drink the milk from their milk bags. Their eyes seemed to be embracing Krishna. There were tears in their eyes. This is an instance of inertia resulting from hearing the transcendental vibrations of Krishna's flute. Krishna's magical flute is such a thing that when he plays on this flute, the river, Acharyas explain in different parts of the scriptures, that the rivers, they actually swim, they start to flow backwards. The rocks, they are sort of almost, they're like inanimate or very low consciousness. They melt in ecstasy. When Krishna plays his flute, here these cows, these calves, they huge ears which are like vessels that hold the sound of this beautiful flute sound, makes them inert or stunned. And in such a manner, they forget that their means of sustenance is to drink the milk from the milk bags, the udders of their mothers. But they become completely mesmerized by seeing the beauty of Krishna. And when they see the beauty of Krishna, all other desires, all other needs become so satisfied, and thus their absorption is drawn to this lotus feet, this lotus form of Krishna. Then there was once one gopi called Lakshmana, and she became quite disturbed by hearing words against Krishna. So she remained inert and did not move her eyelids. This is one example of inertia that's caused by hearing. Sometimes Lalita Devi or Jatila, Kotila, some kind of senior or elderly gopis, they may chastise Krishna in such harsh words. And Krishna says that those words of the gopis, those harsh words of the gopis, are actually more relishable to him than the perfectly composed Sanskrit verses of learned brahmanas. Krishna relishes that. However, the witnessing gopi Lakshmana, when she heard that, she was like shocked. How can someone speak to Krishna like that? So she became sort of inert. You can well imagine someone starts screaming at you, at beloved Krishna, and you're within hearing distance, you'd feel the same. And then there's also the Yudhishthir Maharaj. He became completely bewildered when after bringing Krishna to his house. In the Mahabharata, it's explained that Krishna went to Yudhishthir Maharaj's house, and Yudhishthir Maharaj, he offered so much of respect to Krishna, gave him a good seating place. And the Vedic system is that you offer a guest sweet words, some drinking water, and a sitting place. Those are the three things you offer to a person to show welcome, that the person is welcome. So Yudhishthir Maharaj, when he brought Krishna home, he became so bewildered by the pleasure of having Krishna present in his house that he started to forget himself. This was a sort of inertia that resulted from seeing Krishna. So Lakshmana was from hearing about Krishna being chastised. Yudhishthir Maharaj, he got, how we would say, starstruck. So that is his inertness. And then there's so many examples like that. When Krishna was in Mathura and all of the gopis were standing behind him, and upon seeing that chariot leaving, when Akrura was taking Krishna and Balaram to Mathura, they stood stunned. Some of them could not move. They became sort of pillar-like, it's explained. They remained just like that. They remained like that until the flag of the chariot and the dust that the wheels were bringing up became invisible or disappeared from the vision. They remained rooted to the spot, we can say, stunned, inert. So that's inertia caused by separation, or the Krishna leaving one's presence. One time, Krishna, he was addressed by his friends in a very playful. They said, "Mukunda, Krishna, due to their being separated from you, the cowherd boys, they are standing like neglected deities in the house of a professional brahmana. Cowherd boys, they live their entire lives. As soon as they wake up in the morning, actually before morning comes, they would go to sleep in the evening. Their mothers would feed them and put them to bed. But because their minds, their hearts are so drawn to Krishna, their entire life's existence depends on their association with Krishna. And this separation that now this evening time has brought upon them is so painful to their gentle hearts that their mothers would put them off to rest. And then the cowherd boys would wake up, and it's like maybe an hour later, and they say, "Is it time now? Is it time now to go to Gopal's house, to Nanda Maharaj's house?" And the mothers will say, "Sleep. Night is still young." So the cowherd boys, when they are separated from Krishna, they become completely inert, like deities in the house of brahmanas. There's also professional brahmanas who take deity worship as a means of earning their livelihoods. And these brahmanas are very interested in the deity, which is the focus of their lives. And their interest is mainly money that they can earn because they're holy men and people who bring donations and give them. So their dress is not changed. The deities, they worship by professional brahmanas, but they're not properly decorated. These type of deities are not really dressed or changed regularly. Their bodies are not cleaned, so they look a little dirty, not very attractive. So Prabhupada writes that deity worship should be done very carefully. The dress should be changed daily, and as far as possible there should be ornaments. Everything should be so clean that the deity is attractive to all visitors. Here the example is given of deities in the house of professional brahmanas, because such deities are not at all attractive. The friends of Krishna, in the absence of Krishna, were appearing like neglected deities. This brings to mind the story of the residents of Ayodhya, when Lord Ramachandra left for those years that he had been in exile, they became completely inert. They never bathed, they never cleansed their houses, neither did they cook proper meals. They became sort of inert in the absence of their worshipable Lord, just like here the cowherd boys completely neglected the bathing and the dressing in the absence of Krishna. There's no reason to live if our service to Krishna, association of Krishna becomes taken. The next quality is bashfulness. When Radharani was first introduced to Krishna, she felt bashful. One of her friends addressed her in this way: "My dear friend, you have already sold yourself and all your beauty to Govinda. Now you should not be bashful. Please look upon him cheerfully. One who has sold an elephant to another person should not make a miserly quarrel about selling the trident which controls the elephant." This kind of bashfulness is due to a new introduction in the ecstatic love with Krishna. So Radharani is bashful or sort of shy, starstruck, as we were saying. This can happen in different instances. Indra, when he was defeated, when Krishna went to go get the Parijata flower for his, what was her name? Satyabhama. Satyabhama was one of the queens of Krishna in Dwarka. And Krishna, he went to go get the Parijata flower from Indra, or the tree actually. At that time, Indra, he put up a fight. He was standing before Krishna, and then when he realized that, this fight is, he accepted defeat. He was standing before Krishna, bowing his head. And when Krishna said, "All right, Indra, you can take this Parijata flower, otherwise you'll not be able to show your face before your wife, Sachi Devi," Indra became bashful because he was defeated. So in another instance, Krishna, he praises Uddhava for his various high qualifications. And when Krishna praises a devotee like Uddhav, Uddhav becomes so bashful because Krishna is his superior. And when Krishna starts to glorify him, it's like, what light can a glowworm give when the sun is out? So what good qualities can I radiate in the presence of you, who are the reservoir of all good qualities, Krishna? That would be the mentality of the devotee, such as Uddhav. I think the tap. In the Harivamsa, Satyabhama, she also was feeling that Rukmini's got such a high position. So she says to Krishna, the Revataka mountain is always full of spring flowers, but when I have become a person non grata to you, what is the use of my observing them? So even though the mountain is full of spring flowers, beautiful flowers that Satyabhama could use to decorate herself, use for her, whatever she needs, what is the use for it if Krishna does not give her any attention, and he gives attention to Rukmini? So this is also some type of bashfulness, Prabhupada writes, that is resulted from being defeated by the beauty of another. Then the next quality is concealment. There's a symptom of ecstatic love known as concealment, or trying to hide one's real mental condition by externally showing another attitude. In this state of mind, one tries to hide his mind by looking away in different directions, by unnecessarily trying for something which is impossible, or by using words which cover one's real thoughts. According to the Acharyas, expert in study of physiological activities, these attempts of hiding one's real affection are another part of ecstatic feeling for Krishna. So they don't want to show their real feelings. This is prominent in Radharani's behavior. That Srimati Radharani, she spends her entire existence wishing for the presence, to be in the presence of Krishna. But for the enhancement of the rasa, sometimes she pretends to be in man. So she turns away from Krishna, and she appears to be bothered or angry by Krishna. And she conceals her real feelings. Then Krishna, he has to work harder to get her attention. And the rasa is thus enhanced. Concealment of one's real feelings. Sometimes Radharani her love for Krishna is concealed by the supposed man or anger, as we are just speaking about. So then Krishna, when he works hard, he labors hard to earn her, her favorability, then Radharani starts to smile, but she wants to conceal the smile because the truth of the moment is that she's now trying to be angry with Krishna. But she can't help but smile at Krishna's attempts. So she wears that big nose ring that's attached to her, that then is attached to her ear by a chain. In that instance, she pretends to fix the nose ring so that her smile becomes concealed by her hand fixing the nose ring. So there's a reason why they dress like that. It's all part of the rasa. Then Sukadev Goswami in the Bhagavatam, he explains that the gopis, he's explaining to Maharaj Parikshit that the gopis were always beautiful and decorated with confidential smiles and alluring arguments. In their movements intended to give impetus to lusty feelings, they would sometimes press Krishna's hand on their laps, and sometimes they would keep his lotus feet on their breasts. After doing this, they would talk to Krishna as if they were angry with him. There's also another instance of sort of concealment when Krishna, the supreme joker, plants the Parijata tree in the courtyard of Satyabhama. Rukmini, becomes so angry, but due to her natural gentle behavior, she did not express that anger. No one could understand Rukmini's real mental condition, and this is called this is how you say competitive concealment. So even though she was angry because of her gentle nature, she didn't express that, because Krishna is now bringing the entire Parijata tree from the heavenly planets for the other queen, Satyabhama, and not for her, who is the chief queen. And then in Dwarika, Krishna, he's received in different ways by different members of the family. The queens of Dwarka, when they see Krishna, they immediately embrace him within their minds, and slowly they glance over him. So in Dwarika, the system is that the queens, they stand on the roofs of the palace and they watch Krishna walking or entering the palace from there, and from there they would embrace him within their hearts, and they will shower flower petals, but they won't physically go and do it, because that's considered a bit like sort of forward behavior, or not within the etiquette of the higher ranking society members, as the queens of Dwarika are. And as Krishna comes closer, what they do is, after they embrace him within their hearts, they would push their sons forth to embrace Krishna. And some of them, they feel so shy, they start to shed tears. They can't keep the tears from gliding down, and this is concealment caused by their shyness. Upon seeing Krishna's beautiful form, the most handsome of all handsome persons walking into one's midst will create such a feeling. And then Srimati Radharani, when sometimes she starts to think that Krishna, he's involved with another woman, and she will address him in like a very friendly, in this manner. She'll say, My dear friend, as soon as I think of Krishna, the cowherd boy, attached to some other woman, I become stricken with fear, and the hairs of my body stand up. I must be very careful that Krishna must not see me at such times. She doesn't want Krishna to see her in this mood of jealousness or anger, etc. This is the concealment caused by shyness and diplomatic behavior. So even though she's cross, she has to conceal it in a way that will bring pleasure to Krishna. Then it is stated that although Radharani, she has this deep affection for Krishna, she hides that attitude in the core of the heart so others don't detect it for her actual condition. This is an instance of concealment by gentleness. So Radharani's heart is considered to be like a jewel box or a prem samputa, in other words. So Srimati Radharani's jewel box of love for Krishna is not revealed to others, only to her very intimate associates. So I think it's Srila Rupa Goswami, or one of the Goswamis, wrote the Prem Samputa, where it's described that Srimati Radharani, she sits in the groves of Vrindavan and she waits for Krishna to come meet her. And then Krishna, there's a time that Krishna has to meet Radharani. The appointment is set. But Krishna becomes distracted. He, on his way to meet Srimati Radharani, he sees another gopi. And that gopi comes with full enthusiasm to meet Krishna. And Krishna feels obliged to reciprocate with that devotee or that gopi, even though it's going to delay his meeting with Radharani. At that times, Srimati Radharani will sit in the groves and she will cry. She will cry tears that you may not understand with the materialistic consciousness. So when Radharani was asked about this, she revealed the jewel box of her love that's contained within the jewel box of her heart, her Prem Samputa. She said that when Krishna is coming to meet her and he is stopped by another gopi, the cause of her tears is not for her own self-satisfaction, because Radharani is not a selfish person. There's no selfishness in the persona of Radha. She cries because she knows that Krishna wants to come and meet her. His heart's desire is to be with her, Radha, but he has to temporarily be stopped by the other devotees. So thereby she cries that Krishna's heart's desire is not being fulfilled. So her tears are not for herself. Her tears are because of Krishna's lack of satisfaction. So that's her concealment due to gentleness. Then the cowherd friends, they engage in a lot of friendly conversation with Krishna. And sometimes in a very casual way, they will address Krishna in casual language, not in a very formal conversation. At one time, Krishna has a servant called Patri, who also likes to speak to Krishna in this manner. But remembering his position as a servant, sometimes he would bow down before his master with great respect and control, stifle his smiling and his subdued smile in the instance of concealment caused by respectful attitude. So Patri, even though he's Krishna's intimate servant, sometimes when he sees Krishna doing certain things or in his, interaction with others, Patri becomes highly amused by it. But he can't tell Krishna anything loosely, because he remembers his position, that Krishna is such a high being and his position is simply the servant of Krishna. So he doesn't sort of overstep the mark in his dealings with Krishna. Then the next one is remembrance. It's a nice way to spend our Ekadashi today, to go through this nice pastimes in remembrance of Krishna. Now, remembrance of Krishna, Prabhupada writes, one devotee said that even when he was not very attentive, he would sometimes, seemingly out of madness, remember the lotus feet of Krishna within his heart. In this instance of remembrance resulting from constant practice, in other words, devotees who are constantly thinking of the lotus feet of Krishna, even if they are momentarily inattentive, they will see the figure of Lord Krishna appearing within their hearts. So that's the reward for always trying to remember Krishna through one's deeds, one's actions, by chanting, hearing his glories, etc. That even though we may become sort of lax at certain moments and we're inattentive, it will always haunt us in our memory. Krishna will always haunt us. The memory of Krishna's pastimes, of things we heard about Radha and Krishna, will be there like a background music. And the more we become alert to it, it comes to the fore. And there's a symptom of ecstatic love that's caused by remembering Krishna, where sometimes the friends of Krishna they tell Krishna, Mukunda, just after we see this blue cloud in the sky, the lotus-eyed Radharani, she starts to remember you. So they tell Krishna that, when Radharani sees the blue cloud, she can only remember you. And simply by observing the cloud, she starts to desire Krishna's association. So this is ecstatic love in the instance of remembering Krishna by seeing something that resembles Krishna. Like the example Prabhupada gave of Vyabhichari Bhav when he was speaking of the Bhavs in, I think, chapter 24 of the Nectar of Devotion. He says that when a mother sees the shoes of a child, when the child is not present, she immediately starts thinking of the child. So when Radharani sees the blue cloud, when Krishna sees in Radha Kund and Shama Kund, the water is, when a breeze blows on the water of Radha Kund, Shama Kund, then the water, what happens to it? Little waves start to form. And when Krishna sees the waves, do you know what he remembers? He remembers. Anyone wants to tell me what type of remembrance the waves of the water of Shama Kund and Radha Kund, which are darkish in color, what will it remind Krishna of? Any takers? Anyone wants to give me an answer? What kind of remembrance? I'll give you a clue. In those days, hair straighteners were not used. Okay, I'll give you the answer to save time. When Krishna sees the water of Radha Kund and Shama Kund darkish in color and the breeze creating waves, he becomes so ecstatic because he remembers the wavy curly hair of Srimati Radharani. So when Radharani sees the dark colored tamal tree, she starts to remember Krishna. And she can sometimes start to talk to the tamal tree as if she's talking to Krishna. When Radharani sees the bumblebee, she remembers Krishna. When Radharani hears the word Hari in reference to a lion, she remembers Krishna. So different things stimulate remembrance of Krishna. When the peacock feather is seen, the devotee Mukunda, he fell and he went into great ecstasy. I told you that story many times in class. So the next quality that we go through is that of argumentativeness. Now, argumentativeness brings Krishna a lot of pleasure. Actually, most of his pastimes that have arguments are so relishable to hear. Once Prabhupada writes, while Krishna was out walking, one of the associates of Radharani told her, "My dear friend, do you think that this walking personality is a Tamil tree? If he's a Tamil tree, then how is it possible for him to walk and be so beautiful? Then this personality may be a cloud. But if he's a cloud, then where is the beautiful moon within? Under the circumstances, I think it may be granted that this person is some enchanting personality of Godhead by whose flute vibration the three worlds are captivated. He must be that same Mukunda who's standing before Govardhan Hill." This is another instance of argumentative presentation of ecstatic love. That is he this or is he that? And as you can see in these pictures, Srimati Radharani, when she sees the bumblebee, there's a beautiful conversation that you can read about how Radharani then starts to speak to the bumblebee that, "Oh, blackish one, are you the servant of the blackish master," etc., etc. So that's argumentative sort of conversation goes on. Then there's an entire literature that's written about this pastime in the central picture of the instance of tax collecting, where the cowherd boys, they go and say that, see, Nanda Maharaj, he's the king of Vrindavan. Therefore, Krishna is the prince of Vrindavan or the future king of Vrindavan. And the gopis, they say, no, Vrishabhanu Nandini, she rules this forest. Vrindadevi has given her this forest, and this entire Vrindavan forest belongs to Radharani. Therefore, we don't need to pay taxes to you cowherd boys. And then the cowherd boys, they put on more arguments, and eventually you know the story of how a fight ensues, and in that narrow passageway the clay pots are broken and the cowherd boys demand taxes. This is also prevalent in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was just a little boy, Nimai, he went and he sat himself on a pile of broken pots. So in Vedic culture, when clay is used once, it is discarded as contaminated. Therefore, you don't see, like in our day and age, you may find ceramic ware in our house, dinner plates made of ceramic, and it's reused. In those days, the same clay or ceramics were used once and discarded, and they were not used to remake pots or recycled in any way. They were contaminated and thrown in a pile. So baby Nimai, he went and he sat himself on such a pile, and he started to eat the dirt there. And when Mother Sachi came and said to admonished him that, "Nimai, why are you eating this dirt?" He started to give a certain type of philosophy in an argumentative state of how the pots are a conversion of dirt, and thereby the pots and the dirt are one and the same. So he sort of baffled Mother Sachi by this argument. We hear of the same argumentativeness in the instance of Govardhan Leela, where Nanda Maharaj is trying to do the Indra Puja, and Krishna starts to speak the Karma Mimamsa philosophy, where he argues with his father, and he gets a lot of pleasure from this. Then there's also the example you may have heard of quite often, of when Krishna eats dirt, and he's very small, but when Mother Yasoda catches him, see, Krishna sometimes he plays with cowherd boys that are his size, and sometimes he plays with cowherd boys that are bigger than him. So this particular time he was playing with the cowherd boys that were bigger than him, and they, out of concern, because Putana had just come to Vrindavan, the 12-mile witch, and she was just killed. And when she spread her body, and it was so stretched into so many miles, poison could have fallen onto the dirt. And if Krishna eats this dirt, the cowherd boys were concerned that he would become affected by that poison. Then they were concerned that the dirt of Vrindavan is also mixed with the stool from various other animals like monkeys and buffaloes and boars, etc. So it's not very nice for Krishna to put it in his mouth. So when they went and they told Balaram, but please tell Mother Yasoda that Krishna in seclusion is eating the mud, then Krishna, in the presence of Mother Yasoda, when she approached him, he was, through his eyes and through very many means, trying to argue the fact that he has not eaten dirt. The cowherd boys are lying. The gopis, they lie about him. Everyone lies about him. Balaram lies about him. And he tried to even change the subject, saying that, Balaram, he sometimes, what does he do? He asks me a question in front of all our friends. He says, Krishna, have you ever questioned, how come I, your brother, am whitish in complexion? Nanda Baba is fair in complexion. How come you are black? You're the only one that's black. And then he starts to tell Krishna, our parents, they actually bought you in the marketplace. So, and they didn't want to tell you because they didn't want to hurt your feelings. So Krishna starts to cry. So he tells Mother Yasoda, after revealing that to her, to change the subject of his eating dirt. Then the acharyas explain that he then tries to tell Mother Yasoda, find me a wife. I want to marry the most beautiful girl. And Mother Yasoda says, oh, and who do you have in mind? And he goes on to explain, see, marriage in Vedic culture, he says to Mother Yasoda, is not just marriage between two people, but it's marriage between two families. So our family and Vrishabhanu Maharaj's family are very close. So I was thinking about Vrishabhanu Nandini, Radha. And Mother Yasoda says, oh, and then tell me more. He says, see, she's the most beautiful person and she's golden in color. So if I marry her, then Balaram, he won't have a wife and I'll have the most beautiful girl. So even if they tease me for being black, what can they say any further? Because I will have at my side the most beautiful girl as my wife. So that is in the instance of argumentativeness. So many times it happens like that. Then there's the cowherd boys, and because of their close and intimate relationship with Krishna, they also argue. And one such person is Madhumangal. So Madhumangal, he's always arguing with Krishna. Like when Krishna picked up Govardhan hill, he says, but Krishna, that hill, Govardhan hill, was being held up by the chanting of my mantras. See, I'm born in a Brahmana family, and my pure chanting of the mantras was keeping the hill up, not your endeavor. And then the other cowherd boys say, yes, my father was holding the stick. Our fathers were holding the sticks up. And they argue with Krishna that he can't take all the glory for picking up Govardhan hill. But it's playful argumentativeness, and Krishna becomes so pleased by this type of exchange. And then Krishna's family members, they are actually from a Vaishya community. And Madhumangal, he's a Brahmin. And the Vaishya community and the Brahmin community are quite prominent in Vrindavan. So Madhumangal, one time, he told Krishna, I can see that you're not aware of the peacock feathers that are falling on the ground, and at the same time, you are unmindful of the flower garlands which are offered to you. I can guess the reason for your absent-mindedness. when your two eyes are flying over to see Srimati Radharani like black drones flying to a lotus flower, then you'd start to neglect all of these other offerings of garlands and such opulent offerings everyone else in Vrindavan is bringing to you. You're only focused on Srimati Radharani. This is arguments. These arguments are actually in ecstatic love. They're not on the mundane platform. So it's very nice how God associates with his devotees in all of these different rasa, with all of these different feelings or emotions being used to stimulate rasa. And then we come to anxiety. All of these qualities, you must remember, in the material world, they are the perverted reflection of the original spiritual realm. So even if they're, because they're in the material world, we can understand that they, in the spiritual world, they're there, but in a purer form, like how we've been discussing now. All of these qualities, even anxiety. In Prabhupada writes in the 10th canto, 29th chapter, verse 29 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, when Krishna asked all the gopis to go back to their homes, they did not like it because of their grief because of their grief at this, they were sighing heavily and their beautiful faces appeared to be drying up. In this condition, they remained without making a sound. They began to draw lines on the ground with their toes, and with their tears they washed the black ointment from their eyes to their breasts, which were covered with red kumkum powder. In this is an instance of anxiety in ecstatic love. So Krishna, he blew his flute, he called them, they left everything, they ran from their houses towards the flute sound, and then Krishna tells them, why did you come here? You must go back to your houses and complete your household duties. So Krishna is sending them back. So can you imagine how much of anxiety they had in their hearts, that they've been waiting for Krishna to call them. And as soon as they heard that fifth note, they ran, leaving their mascara in one applied only in one eye, their hair half combed, different things. Everything didn't matter. Only meeting Krishna at the call of his flute mattered. And now Krishna says to them, oh, go back, go serve your husbands, go do all of this. So that caused anxiety for them. And Krishna did this to increase the rasa. Sometimes the friends of Krishna, they will tell him, oh Murari, you killer of the Mura demon, your kind and gentle mother Yasoda is so anxious because you've not returned home, and with great difficulty she's passed the evening constantly sitting on the balcony of your home. So when Krishna leaves to go herd the cows, Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yasoda, they can't go with him. What do? They, out of their deep love for Krishna, every few steps they'll hug Krishna, kiss his hair. Mother Yasoda, she takes spit from her mouth and she applies it in different parts of his body, with uttering mantras for protection against evil spirits, against demons, against so many things. Krishna is going into the jungle now, and she feels it her duty to protect him thus, and out of her affection she does so. So then she finishes that, Krishna starts to walk. Then Mother Yasoda will say, Krishna, did you take your tiffin? Don't forget, you must eat at lunchtime. Yes, Mother, Krishna will say. Then he turns, takes another few steps. Mother Yasoda, Nanda Maharaj will say, Krishna, don't forget to do this, this and this. And then, so much anxiety because now they're going to be separated from Krishna. But Krishna is the indwelling witness within the heart of all living beings. And he knows the hearts especially of these pure devotees of his. So he would say, Mata, can you go and make such and such drink for me so that when I come home, I can have that. And he tell you, Nanda Maharaj, Baba, can you go make me a bat, so when I come home we can have a bat to play with my friends, bat and ball? Actually, can you make me about 7 bats? So Krishna, to appease the anxiety of his parents' gentle heart, he gives them some service so that they could stay connected to him and they could feel less separation but look forward to his returning. So that little bit of separation gives them the pain or the anxiety. When Mother Yasoda is very anxious, Nanda Maharaj, he gives her some solace, and he says, Yasoda, please don't be worried. Please dry your beautiful lotus-like face. There's no need for you to breathe so hotly. I'll go immediately with Akrura to the palace of Kamsa and get your son back for you. So this was when Nanda Maharaj had to leave Krishna in Mathura and return to Vrindavan. Mother Yasoda was completely ripped, so to speak, with anxiety that her gentle boy was now left in Mathura, and Kamsa and his friends, they live in Mathura. So she was in complete anxiety, and Nanda Maharaj would have to thus appease her. So some instances explain that Yasoda Mai went to Mathura, and other times it is written that she didn't go, she stayed back in Vrindavan. So the pastime occurs differently in different times when Krishna appears. Thus it is we encounter such things. Then thoughtfulness. In the Vaishaka Mahatmya section of the Padma Purana, a devotee states that though in some of the 18 Puranas the process of glorifying Lord Vishnu is not mentioned and the glorifying of some demigod is offered, such glorification must be continued for millions of years. For when one studies the Puranas very scrutinizingly, he can see ultimately Lord Vishnu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is an instant of ecstatic love developed out of thoughtfulness. So, out of the love for Krishna, a devotee will always come to the conclusion that Krishna, you are the summum bonum of everything. Then Prabhupada gives an example of thoughtfulness in Rukmini's writing the letter to Krishna when her family members, her brother Rukmi, had arranged her marriage to Shishupal. Then Rukmini, she wrote a love letter to Krishna, and in that she requested that Krishna come and kidnap her before the marriage, because her heart is completely sold out to Krishna. And when she wrote the letter, she mentioned, my dear Lord Krishna, your transcendental glories are chanted by sages who are free from material contamination, and in exchange for their glorification, you freely distribute yourself to such devotees. And she goes on in a very thoughtful way, writing this letter to Krishna. And eventually, when Krishna gets the letter, he reads all of her thoughts and he understands that this is a letter imbued with deep prem, and he unhesitatingly goes and he rescues her. So that's an instance of thoughtfulness. This brings to mind Arjuna's addressing Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. When he addresses Krishna by different names, he has different reasons why he does so. Like, for example, when he calls Krishna Govinda, indirectly, Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in their commentaries write that indirectly he's saying to Krishna, when he, of all the names, for example, when he says Govinda, then he's addressing Krishna in such a way that, Govinda, you give pleasure to the senses. Please Do not give pain to my senses by employing me to kill Bhishma and Drona. Then he uses systematically different names to accomplish whatever statement or argument he's putting forth to not fight the battle. And Krishna, he replies by calling Arjuna very thoughtfully different other names. He'll call him Kunteya out of endearment, that you're not just anyone, you are part of me. You are actually my poor son. So they speak to each other with great thoughtfulness. There's the instance of that comes to mind of when Hanuman returned from seeing Mother Sita in the Ashok gardens, and he brings the message to Lord Ramachandra, who at this time had waited to he had sent different armies. Hanuman was one of the groups, but there was Jambavan's group. There were all different groups, Nal and Neil's group, different groups that were sent. And then they kept coming. They all returned, and they said, no luck, didn't find Mother Sita. So when Hanuman was returning, Lord Ramachandra displayed so much of anxiety. And the Acharyas explain that Hanuman, he knew the heart of his Lord, and in his statement of telling Lord Ram that he did see Sita, he phrased it in such a way. You remember how he said it? He used the word, it's like, not that I found Sita, he phrased it in such a way that found Sita, he conveyed it in a manner that even for a moment Lord Ramachandra would not feel anxiety. The first word that comes out will give him indication that Sita was found. So Hanuman was expert and thoughtful in how he spoke to Lord Ram in that instance. I was just listening to this one devotee who was teaching deity worship, and he was explaining when Krishna and Radha are dressed, a lot of thought has to go into the turban, the dress, the attire, etc. So Ahindra Prabhu, he was teaching the devotees how to dress the deities, and he was saying that if Radharani's skirt touches Krishna's feet, that will bring him more pleasure. And if his chadar touches Radharani, that will give him more pleasure. So, so a lot of thoughtfulness goes into everything, and that will increase rasa. The next quality, so much can be said about each quality, but I'm rushing through because of time. And you are very patiently hearing in the late hours of the night, those of you are in different countries. So endurance. When a person is fully satisfied due to attaining knowledge, transcending all distress, or achieving his desired goal of life in transcendental devotional service to God, this state of endurance or steady-mindedness is called driti. At this stage, one is not perturbed by any amount of loss, nor does anything appear to be unachieved by him. So endurance is such an astounding quality in love towards Krishna. One time, Prabhupada quotes the opinion of someone called Bharithari, a learned scholar. When a person is elevated to the state of endurance, he thinks as follows: I do not wish to be a highly posted government servant. I shall prefer to remain naked without proper garments. I shall prefer to lie down on the ground without any mattress. And despite all these disadvantages, I shall refuse to serve anyone, even in the government. In other words, when one has in ecstatic love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he can endure any kind of disadvantage calculated under the material concept of life. So the thought the memory or this instance of endurance brings to mind Srila Haridas Thakur, that how much he had to endure because he would simply not want to be separated from the holy names of Krishna. And there's so many examples of different devotees that they will willingly embrace dangerous situations simply to keep remembrance of Krishna. There's a very nice book called Salted Bread, and there, for those of you that read it, you will recall that the Russian devotees, their blood was being stolen from them by the government. They were going through so much of adversities, but they endured all of this because simply they knew that at the end of all, whatever is happening to their temporary material existence, they want never to forget their eternal relationship with Krishna. So this is an instance of mental endurance resulting from the absence of all distress. And then Prabhupada cites another devotee. I am always swimming in the nectarian ocean of pastimes of the personality of Godhead, and as such, I have no more attraction for religious rituals, economic developments, sense gratification, or even the ultimate salvation of merging into the existence of Brahman. So this is endurance in the minds due to achieving the best thing in the world. There's a verse in one of the purports at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. I think it's a prayer by some Madhvacharya or some Acharya with beginning with M, and therein he utters an apology. O senior members of my family, O demigods, and he enlists all different people that we are supposedly indebted to. He implores them to get rid of the debt because he can do nothing but worship the lotus feet of Krishna. So, like we always say, our 10 Rand problems are all solved if we get a 200 Rand note. So, endurance is a very endearing quality. Takes us to the next one, happiness. Prabhupada writes, it is described in the Vishnu Purana that when Akrura came to take Krishna and Balaram to Mathura, just by seeing their faces, he became so cheerful that all over his body there were symptoms of ecstatic love. This state is called happiness. Just by seeing Krishna, ecstatic symptoms become visible in the body of a devotee. And this is also true in when Mother Yasoda, she sees Krishna in the Damodar Leela, her body starts to produce unlimited amount, so much milk, so many things start to happen. When the gopis see Krishna, they forget everything else and they can only remember the joy of serving Krishna or how they could bring pleasure to Krishna. So this is increased happiness. Then in the 10th canto, it is said that upon seeing that Krishna's arm was placed on her shoulder, one of the gopis who was engaged in the rasa dance, she became so ecstatically happy that she kissed Krishna quickly on his cheek. In this instance, feeling happy because of achieving the desired goal. So happiness is there. Sometimes a devotee becomes so overwhelmed by the presence of Krishna that they will behave in such a manner, giving up all external designations. Then there's eagerness. Prabhupada writes, in the 10th canto, 71st chapter, verse 33 of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, When Krishna first came from his kingdom Dwarka to Indraprastha, the young females of the city became so eager to see him that even at night when they were lying down with their husbands, they could not restrain their eagerness. Even though they were not properly dressed, and although their hair was loose, and there were many household duties to perform, they still gave up everything and immediately went to the street to see Krishna. This is an instant of eagerness in ecstatic love, that the devotee forgets all external, all things external. Excuse me. This brings to mind the story of that devotee. I forget his name. It starts with B. In Mayapur. And when Lord Nrsingadev appeared in his dream and told him, gave him some instructions, the devotee was very scared to worship Ugra Nrsingadev. And Nrsingadev appeared in his room. He used to sleep on the top of a bunk bed. And Nrsingadev, the deity Nrsingadev, the personality of the deity, came and sat next to him, placed his hands on his shoulder, and Nrsingadev's fingernail marks were left there. And this devotee became so ecstatic by his interaction with Lord Nrsingadev in such instance that he ran to the temple room. It was Mangal Arti time. Prostrated himself before the deity, and when he woke up, he noticed that all the devotees were looking at him and like smirking, and he wondered why. And then he realized that he was in his underwear. He forgot all things external in his eagerness to see the Lord and offer his respects, that he appeared in such a manner in the temple. So this is what is being described here, the eagerness when seeing Krishna. Raghunath Das Goswami has prayed for the mercy of Radharani, who has captivated, who is so captivated by the flute vibrations of Krishna that she immediately asked information of his whereabouts from the residents of Vrindavan. So Radharani, when she hears Krishna's flute, she runs and then she asks everyone, have you seen him? Which direction has Kana gone in? Where is Govinda? And upon seeing Krishna, when she just first sees him, the love and pleasure it becomes so overwhelming. And one thing that she does is she starts to scratch her ears. The damsels of Vrindavan and Radharani, they're very expert in talking very cunningly. And so as soon as they see Krishna, they begin their talking in this cunning manner. And Krishna, pretending to go from flower to flower for them, immediately he leaves the place and he enters into like a mountain cave. And this is another instance of eager, loving exchanges on the part of both the gopis and Krishna. That there's eagerness, but they will add the masala, so to speak, of cunning talks. And Krishna knows exactly how to reciprocate. Then there's an instant of violence. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he comments about violence and envy. He expresses that violence and envy is not to be found in Madhurya Ras. It may show up in the other rasas, but not in Madhurya Ras. So Prabhupada writes, when Krishna was fighting with the Kaliya snake by dancing on his head, Kaliya bit on Krishna's leg. At that time, Garuda became infuriated and began to murmur, Krishna is so powerful that simply by his thundering voice the wives of Kaliya have had miscarriages. Because my Lord has been insulted by this snake, I wish to devour him immediately. But I can't do this so in the presence of my Lord, because he may become angry with me. This is an instance of eagerness to act in ecstatic love as a result of dishonor to Krishna. So violence. This brings to mind at the recollection of Shishupal in the Rajasuya sacrifice of Yudhishthir Maharaj. That Shishupal was the son of Krishna's aunt. So he was very closely related to Krishna. You all know the story that Shishupal, when he was born, his mother was very anxious to get rid of the extra organs that he was born with, so he doesn't look so demoniac. He had 3 eyes and 4 arms, and he looked really terrible with it. So she asked, she heard a prophecy that she asked, actually, how would my son die? And the answer was that upon whosever lap this child is placed, that person will be the cause of his death. So she placed him on so many kings, so many powerful warriors' laps. Nothing happened. And Krishna was a small child he went there with Balaram. And Shishupal's mother placed she was the maternal aunt of Krishna and Balaram. She placed him on Balaram's lap. And at that time, Krishna said, "What about me, Pua? What about me?" And then she playfully placed the child on Krishna's lap. She had deep affection for Krishna. Everyone had so much deep affection for Krishna, including her. And when Shishupal's extra organs fell off upon being placed on Krishna's lap, she extracted a promise from Krishna that, "Please excuse my son for 100 offenses." So in the Rajasuya sacrifice, when Shishupal was uttering his offenses against Krishna, Yudhishthir Maharaj, Arjun, Bhishma, Drona, they all pulled out their swords. Their blood was boiling, so to speak. Can you imagine Bhima? His club was ever so ready to smash the evil Shishupal immediately. But Krishna, he shook his head. No, no, no. He shook his finger. No, no, no. This is not the time to kill Shishupal. So this is an instance of violence out of love for Krishna. That Garuda wants to kill the Kaliya serpent. His blood is boiling. He is stimulated to commit a violent act. But Krishna, so this is how love can actually drive a person in this very high state of love towards Krishna. Then we go on to the next quality, which is haughtiness resulting in dishonorable words. In the Vidagdha Madhava, Jatila, the mother-in-law of Radharani, began to criticize Krishna in this way. "Krishna, you are standing here, and Radharani, who has been married to my son, is also standing here. Now, I know both of you very well. So why should I not be very anxious to protect my daughter-in-law from your dancing eyes?" This is an instance of dishonorable words used to indirectly criticize Krishna. And you can have so much of excitement if you read in different commentaries of the different acharyas the exchange between Jatila and Krishna. She will say the most meanest things to Krishna, and Krishna knows just how to reciprocate with such words, because it endears him. It gives him great pleasure, not to be imitated at home, as we would say. Sometimes the gopis, they also speak to Krishna in this way. They will tell him, "Krishna, you are a first-class thief, so please leave this place immediately. We know you love Chandravali more than us." See, there's Radharani who was in the left wing, and Chandravali, she's a right-wing gopi. And then they will tell Krishna, "There's no use for you to praise Chandravali in our presence. Don't contaminate the name of Radharani in this place." So they will tell Krishna that if he speaks about Chandravali in the presence of them and Radharani, he's contaminating Radharani and her name. So this is, they speak quite harshly to him. Sometimes Lalita, she is very, very expert also in speaking to Krishna in this manner. And Krishna gets so much of pleasure from this that he's completely endeared to her, especially for her arguments. Sometimes the gopis, they even tell Krishna, there's extreme distress in being out of your presence, and there's extreme happiness in simply seeing you. Therefore, we all have left our husbands, our relatives, and we're captivated by the sound of your flute. You'd better know the reason for our coming here. In plain words, we are here simply because we're captivated by the sweet sound of your flute. We are all beautiful girls, and you are so foolish that you're rejecting our association. We do not know anyone other than yourself. Who would miss this opportunity to associate with young girls in the dead of night? So they are sort of speaking haughtily to Krishna because he's now sending them back home after calling them. There's also the example of Krishna speaking sort of haughtily to the gopis in the instance of when he steals their garments. You would recall that the gopis, they folded their clothes and left it on the bank of the river, their clean clothes, and they entered the river to go and have a bath. And normally, the bathing place of these young girls is not inhabited by any male person. But Krishna took it upon himself to come there, pick up all their clothes while they were absorbed in bathing, and then climb the high tree and hang their clothes from the tree. And when the gopis were begging him to please give them back their clothes, he ensued the conversation with many such haughty statements. So now we move to the quality of envy, which Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur told us is not present in Madhurya Leela. In the Padyavali, one of the friends of Radharani once addressed her thus: "My dear friend, please do not be too puffed up because Krishna has decorated your forehead with his own hand. It may be that Krishna is yet attracted by some other beautiful girl. I see that the decoration on your forehead is very nicely made, and so it appears that Krishna was not too disturbed in painting it. Otherwise, he could not have painted such exact lines." So they're trying to tell Radharani that she's not so beautiful because Krishna was not so captivated, because if he was so captivated by her beauty, the lines would be crooked. But because the lines are perfectly straight, don't become so puffed up to think that you were so captivating to Krishna. So this is an instance of envy caused by Radha's good fortune. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that this type of feeling has no maya at all in it. It is simply to enhance the flavor of deep loving exchange. You can write any questions at any time or any comments as we move on. So the next instance is impudence. Impudence is, Srila Prabhupada says in the 10th canto, 52nd chapter, verse 41 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Rukmini addresses Krishna in a letter as follows: "My dear unconquerable Krishna, my marriage day is fixed for tomorrow. I request you to come to the city of Vaidarbha without advertising yourself. Then have your soldiers and commanders suddenly surround and defeat all the strength of the king of Magad, and by thus adopting the methods of the demons, please kidnap and marry me." So she's appearing to be forthright or impudent, but in other words, Krishna, he reciprocates fully with such impudence because because it is to save or protect the dignity of Rukmini. And she has expressed such thoughtfulness, we said, in her letter. Then there's the one of the gopis. They said, May Krishna's sweet flute be washed away by the waves of the Yamuna and made fall into the ocean. The sweet sound of that flute is so impudent it makes all of us lose our composure before our superiors. So it's an instance of impudence. Or they're saying, let the flute fall into the ocean and disappear because it is disturbing our lives. It's causing a disturbance in our consciousness. We can't have that go on. Let it fall in the ocean and thus be lost. So just a few more. The next quality is dizziness. Every evening at sunset, Krishna used to return from the pasturing ground where he herded the cows. Sometimes, when Mother Yasoda could not hear the sweet vibration of his flute, she'd become so anxious, and because of this, she would feel dizzy. Thus, dizziness caused by anxiety in ecstatic love for Krishna is also possible. So we read just now of how Radharani felt a little dizzy in the first instance when she saw the cottage where she and Krishna performed pastimes. Now we see Mother Yasoda, she becomes a bit dizzy. There's also the instance that Mother Yasoda, she starts to think that, oh, Krishna, his body is so soft, it's so delicate. How could I have tied him with a rope? And she becomes a bit puzzled. And when she thinks that, how could I have brought myself to do such an activity, tie such a silky soft body with a rope, although her ropes were silken ropes as well. She feels sort of dizzy, the Acharyas explain. Then this dizziness is also exhibited by the gopis. The gopis are sometimes advised by their superiors, lock all the doors, bolt the doors at night. But they are so carefree that they don't carry out these orders very rigidly because they know Krishna is the ultimate protector. But sometimes they become so absorbed thinking about Krishna that they become so confident of being out of all danger that they would lie down in the night in the courtyards of their houses and they'll feel a bit dizzy. So just because of their thoughts of their beloved Krishna. So the question may be asked, why do devotees of Krishna be attacked by dizziness, which is actually considered to be a sign of the mode of ignorance? So in order to answer this question, Srila Jiva Goswami has said that the devotees of Krishna are always transcendental to the modes of material nature. When they feel dizzy or go to sleep, they are not considered to be sleeping or under the modes of nature, but they are accepted as being in a trance of devotion. There is an authoritative statement in the Garud Puran by the mystic yogis who are under the direct shelter of the Supreme Lord. And they quote, "In all three stages of consciousness, wakeful, dreaming, and deep sleep, the devotees are absorbed in the thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, in their complete absorption of thought, they do not sleep, they do not become dizzy, they are not tainted by the lower modes of matter. In other words, this dizziness is simply out of ecstatic love for Krishna." So it's like a samadhi sort of state that they go into. Then sleepiness. Once Lord Baladev began to talk in his sleep as follows: "O lotus-eyed Krishna, your childhood adventures are manifested simply according to your own will. Therefore, please immediately dispose of the stubborn pride of this Kaliya serpent." By saying this, Lord Baladev astonished the assembly of the Yadus and made them laugh for some time. Then, yawning so hard as to make ripples on his abdomen, Lord Baladev, the bearer of the plough, returned to his deep sleep. This is an instance of sleepiness in ecstatic love. So, like we heard just now from Srila Jiva Goswami, such sleep is like a deep state of trance, that they're still living in the pastimes of Krishna. even though they're supposedly asleep. So this can happen in so many different instances. While sleeping, they will think, oh, Krishna needs this, oh, Krishna needs that, and in their sleepy state they actually are meditating on serving Krishna and pleasing Krishna. The next quality is alertness, the opposite of sleep. So alertness is the last quality we'll discuss for today. A devotee once stated, Prabhupada writes, I have already conquered the mode of ignorance, and I am now on the platform of transcendental knowledge. Therefore, I shall be engaged only in searching after the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is an instant of alertness in ecstatic love. Transcendental alertness is possible when the illusory condition is completely overcome. At that stage, when in contact with any reaction of material elements, such as sound, smell, touch, taste, devotee realizes the presence of the Supreme Lord. In this condition, the ecstatic symptoms, standing, the hair on the body, rolling of the eyeballs, and getting up from sleep are persistently visible. So Radharani, when she first saw Krishna, she became so conscious in transcendental happiness that the functions of her, she became stunned. And then Lalita whispered in Radharani's ear, and then she immediately opened her eyes wide and became very alert because of the sound of Krishna's name. One time, Krishna, he was joking with Srimati Radharani, and he said, I'm going to give up your company. And immediately he disappeared after he said that. And because Radha became so afflicted by the hue of her body changed, she became so afflicted by Krishna's disappearance, her whole body changed, the color of her body changed. She fell down on the ground, she stopped breathing, she smelled the fragrance of the flowers on the ground, and she woke up in ecstasy. And in this instance of transcendental alertness, simply by smelling the flowers offered to, that Krishna's lotus feet trampled on, even though he disappeared, she was totally alert and cognizant of Krishna's beauty by smelling those flowers. Because the smell of his lotus feet, Krishna can hide, but he can't hide his smell. He has a sweet scent that always tends to give him away. One time, Krishna, he was touching the body of one of the gopis, and he said, whose hand is touching you? I had become very afraid of the dark forest on the bank of the Yamuna, but suddenly the touch of this hand saved me from hysterical fits. So this is becoming alert just by Krishna's touch, that even though it's thunderous, it's dark, and it's nighttime, the gopis, they feel very alert because they're in the presence of Krishna. Sometimes Krishna, he disappears from the rasa dance. 64 million gopis dancing, and then he disappears. And Radharani, immediately she will fall to the ground, she'll lose her consciousness. And then what do the gopis do to revive Radharani? They give her some medicine. And what is that medicine? That is the betel nut remnants that Krishna has chewed on. So then they will give that to her, and immediately it's like a keep wake pull. She sits up in complete jubilation, and so many ecstatic symptoms become manifest in her body, and she becomes extremely alert. Sometimes Radharani, she will talk in her sleep, and she will say, Krishna, don't play any jokes on me, please stop, don't touch my garments also, otherwise I'll tell my elders, and I shall tell them of your naughty behavior. And while she talks like this in a dream, suddenly she'll like sit upright and be awake, and as if the elders are in front of her in case it is being revealed to them. In another case, Krishna will send a messenger to Radharani, and while she's sleeping, immediately she'll become awakened. Sometimes Krishna will blow his flute in the night, and all of the gopis, they will immediately become completely alert and they will be awake. There are other, so sometimes the lotus flower is sometimes surrounded by white swans and sometimes black wasps who are collecting honey. When there's thunder in the sky, the swans, they go away, black wasps, they stay and they enjoy the flower. So the gopis, their sleeping condition is compared to the swans. The sound of Krishna's flute is compared to the wasp. That when Krishna sounds the flute, the swans, which represent the sleeping conditions, become vanquished and they are completely alert because of the black wasp of the sound of Krishna's flute. So this alertness is there. So it's very beautiful to go through all of these symptoms. And next week we begin a very long chapter which continues in this theme, and it's the different additional symptoms. So certain symptoms that fell within this list of 33 will then be sort of related to those additional symptoms. So they're not out of the list, they're within the list, but they're categorized as separate. So it will be even more relishable. So I hope that you found this remembrance of Krishna and his associates very, very ecstatic, as I have found. Thank you very much. And then we have one question from Vidura Prabhu in Mauritius. How devotees can practically benefit by understanding the psychological, loving, spiritual exchanges? How do you benefit? It endears your remembrance. It endears Krishna in your remembrance. It endears the loving. When you hear about these loving exchanges, then we become endeared to that person, Krishna. Oh, Krishna is not just some Mr. Ice that he sits on a white cloud and he doesn't reciprocate with anybody. He just, is interested in judgment. It's not that concept of God that we have. Our understanding of God is that he is a soft-hearted person who churns the heart of the devotee in such a manner that he will extricate the nectar of these sweet loving exchanges by bringing out all of these feelings. So that's how you appreciate it, and that's how you become more endeared to Krishna. I hope that was okay. Do you have any comment?
So,
Here, take the microphone.
So by hearing these sections of Nectar devotion, it's not part of the Bhakti Shastri, and we can understand why, because it's practically describing the interaction between Krishna and his devotees, the qualities that are there, the loving exchanges, the rasas. So that's really beyond the comprehension of people in this material world. But Srila Prabhupada has given those chapters in Nectar devotion. And the reason is by associating with these chapters and by drinking them with our ears, it creates it enhances and nourishes our Krishna consciousness and our relationship with Krishna. And the more our relationship strengthens with Krishna, then our relationship naturally is nurtured in relation to the devotees. Krishna is never separated from his devotees. So really, generally Prabhupada would often make this point that in the material world, like for example, people say service to man is service to God. But Prabhupada would turn that around, say, no, first service to God is service to man. When you serve Krishna, then automatically you serve all men. Similarly, developing our relationships with each other separately from Krishna is really will be short-lived and not really fruitful, not really wholesome, not really satisfying. So when we develop our relation with Krishna first as the center, then automatically all his parts and parcels are included, and our relationships with the parts and parcels becomes more conducive for serving each other, for pleasing Krishna. So that is what these, by understanding, or not really understanding, by associating, by hearing these chapters and just giving attention to them, they actually very spiritually, subtly nourishes our relationship with other devotees.
It also gives you hope that spiritual life is ecstatic, it's not boring, that as we develop, then these bhavas will become awakened, and we too will relish our association on such a deep level, exhibiting so many it's ecstatic that so many different emotions will become awakened, all for the pleasure of Krishna, all Krishna centered. It's like anxiety in its perfection. It's like alertness in its total perfection. All of these qualities in their total perfection. Are there any further questions? If not, thank you very much. Shri Ekadasi Vrata ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Forthcoming Gaur Purnim festival ki jai. So I wish you all a very happy Gaur Purnim. It's a Vaishnav New Year, and going forth, I hope that we strengthen our relationships by hearing from Srila Prabhupada in a deep sense in each other's association. Thank you very much. Just hold on 1 minute. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.